In our new series, we will explore the influences from Slavic mythology and folklore that the author Andrzej Sapkowski used in creating his fantasy world centered around Geralt of Rivia. We will describe the various creatures that appear in The Witcher and how their mythological counterparts differ from Sapkowski's depictions. In presenting each being, we will discuss its origins in both mythology and history, as well as the characteristics and abilities that these beings were said to possess according to the mysterious legends of the ancient Slavs. Polish writer Andrzej Sapkowski is undoubtedly among the world's leading figures in fantasy literature. He became globally famous, of course, for his stories about Geralt of Rivia, known in Polish as Wiedźmin or The Witcher. Among his other significant works are the Hussite Trilogy, a fantasy series set in the 15th century during the Hussite Wars in the Czech lands, and a historical novel with fantasy elements that tells the story of a Soviet praporchik of Polish descent, Pavel Levard. Additionally, Sapkowski is active in writing essays and reviews on fantasy literary topics. The Witcher himself originated as a literary experiment when Sapkowski penned a short story and published it in 1986 in the Polish magazine Fantastica. In this story, he created the character of Geralt of Rivia and the very concept of witchers, individuals dedicated to combating dangerous monsters who acquire their superhuman abilities through magic, poisons, and mutations. Geralt is portrayed as a morally ambiguous character, and the fantasy world he inhabits is dark and quite realistic. Sapkowski's world differs from traditional fantasy, drawing inspiration from a wide array of European and Middle Eastern myths, while infusing it with a distinct Slavic flavor. This is not classic Western fantasy inspired by Tolkien, who built his world primarily on Germanic and Norse myths, and thus set the direction for most others, not, however, for Sapkowski. These factors undoubtedly contributed to his rapid popularity among readers, and shortly thereafter, Sapkowski set about writing a series of short stories that he later compiled into two collections, The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. This was followed by the publication of 5 more books about The Witcher, which together form the currently 7-part Witcher saga, as well as a standalone novel set in the Witcher universe. Sapkowski's world gained popularity after the release of computer games by the Polish developer CD Projekt Red, the first of which was released in 2007. The most successful title in terms of both gameplay and sales, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, was released in 2015. This game not only became one of the best-selling computer games of all time, but also significantly contributed to the mass popularity of the Witcher universe. The work has also been relatively successful in its visual adaptation in the Netflix series. Despite a decline in ratings from critics and viewers alike, the series has become one of the most watched projects on Netflix. In the first part, we will be introduced to the entity Baba Yaga. Firstly, it is important to mention that we won't find a creature that directly corresponds to the mythological Baba Yaga in Sapkowski's works. However, despite this, Sapkowski has incorporated the traits of Baba Yaga into his narratives. Baba Yaga represents a mysterious being that embodies darkness, wisdom, a connection to nature, and duality. She can harm but also help. The archetype of Baba Yaga is thus ingeniously transformed in Sapkowski's works into several layered characters. Among them are Corinne Tilly, Yennefer of Vengerberg, but primarily the crones. The crones are the most iconic representatives of the Baba Yaga archetype in The Witcher. They appear primarily in the video game The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt and consist of three sisters, Bruas, Weaves, and Wispes. They are three old witches who live in the swamps and rule over the local people with dark and ominous power. They are cunning, eerie, and possess abilities that make them dark guardians of nature. This description aligns quite well with Slavic notions of Baba Yaga. Once upon a time, beyond 3 times 9 kingdoms, in the 30th realm, across the fiery river, in a deep forest, there lives Baba Yaga in a little house on chicken legs. Her appearance is repulsive. She has grey hair, gaunt cheeks, a pointed hooked nose, and iron teeth. She leaves her cottage surrounded by a fence of human bones adorned with skulls, in a flying mortar, propelling herself with a pestle while sweeping away her tracks with a broom. She has a keen sense of smell and can detect a stranger from 100 miles away. Baba Yaga is treacherous, cunning, and possesses magical powers of nature. She hunts those who have wandered into her territory or stolen any precious object from her. She pursues her victims with a wide grin on her grotesque face, her sharp iron teeth gleaming in her mouth. According to the ancient Slavs, her magical powers encompass various natural forces, as well as spells that can transform people and animals into inanimate objects. Baba Yaga uses this power to punish those who oppose her and to reward those who deserve her favor. In stories and myths, Baba Yaga often appears as an evil and malevolent being. Yet, on the other hand, she embodies wisdom and represents unpredictable natural forces. In some tales, however, she plays a positive role, offering her wise counsel or useful gifts to those heroes who treat her with respect or stand out with their brave hearts. At times, she acts as a so-called guardian of the threshold, meaning that the hero must complete tasks set by Baba Yaga or pass her tests to continue on their journey. In this context, it is often mentioned that she is one of 3 sisters. Baba Yaga as such primarily pertains to the traditions of the Eastern Slavs, personifying the forces of nature and associating with death as well as renewal. Baba Yaga likely has very deep roots in Slavic tradition and is connected with the belief in forest spirits, which manifest in female forms. Baba Yaga may be inspired by the figure of a shamaness or some ancient goddess of the earth, fertility, as well as the underworld and death. The archetype of the old and wild woman is associated with natural wisdom and the boundary between life and death in not only Slavic culture. Ancient pagan Slavs revered old women, viewing them as symbols of wisdom and often serving as intermediaries between the worlds of the living and the dead. These notions may also be reflected in the character of Baba Yaga. With the acceptance of Christianity, figures of this type began to be demonized and were depicted as manifestations of malevolent demonic forces. Thus, Baba Yaga likely took on a darker and more fearsome character, which is evident in the stories and fairy tales that people shared. And although it has been said that Baba Yaga is primarily associated with the Eastern Slavs, similar female figures also appear among the Western Slavs. The Czechs were familiar with the so-called Jezinki, wild women living in caves, whose nature is similarly ambivalent to that of Baba Yaga. They lure travelers into their hideaways, where they might gouge out their eyes or even eat them. At other times, they serve as guides through the forest. In this video, we explore the character of Baba Yaga, who is not directly represented in Sapkowski's work, although her character and traits were certainly utilized in the creation of characters and beings in his world. In the upcoming videos of this series, we will focus on one of the monsters that appears in The Witcher and examine how much it differs from its mythological counterpart.